Hello friends, this is Pavlo Shtermach with the news pulse for today. If you are ready or not, here we go. And we start with the news from London. US Representatives Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff refused to go to negotiations with Ukraine and the allies. That reportedly happened after Volodymyr Zelenskyy refused the key demand of America to recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Only Keith Kellogg arrived and the joint declaration by Ukraine's allies was postponed. Washington declared a position that they can simply walk away from negotiations if both parties, they mean Ukraine and Russia, won't allow, I quote, territorial concessions. And Russia has again been shelling Ukraine all night long. A bus in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast has been hit, carrying workers to their enterprise. 43 people are wounded, 9 reported to have died. And while Ukraine is blamed for not giving up its territory, Russia continues to demonstrate its unwavering desire for peace by killing more Ukrainians, as we can see. Russian forces attacked one of the key energy infrastructure enterprises in the city of Kherson for over 24 hours. On the morning of Wednesday, April 23rd, the head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, Alexander Prokudin, reported that Russian troops had targeted the facility that supplies electricity to the city using artillery and drones. Our military fought throughout the night to repel the enemy strikes. However, by morning, the Russians achieved their goal and destroyed the energy facility, Prokudin wrote on Telegram. Energy workers are doing everything possible and impossible to stabilize the power situation in the city. I ask everyone to use electricity as sparingly as possible. Emergency outages may occur in the near future, the official warned. So Kherson now faces severe power shortages as Russian attacks knock off the power grid supply source. Russia has not responded to Kyiv's proposal to extend the so-called Easter truce for 30 days. According to Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga, such actions by the Russian Federation show its true attitude to peace efforts, including the US. Why Putin's attempt to present himself as a peacemaker failed and what de-escalation formats Kyiv is now proposing, Valeria Nikipilova looked into it.
The Easter ceasefire proposed by Putin didn't last even a single day. While there was a slight lull in fighting, it did not stop entirely. In 24 hours, Russian forces violated the declared truce nearly 3,000 times. The heaviest shelling and assault activity was recorded in the Pokrovsk direction.
In total, 96 combat engagements were recorded over the course of the day. According to updated information, the enemy carried out 1,882 shelling attacks on Ukrainian positions and populated areas, including 33 using multiple rocket launch systems, and deployed 957 kamikaze drones, from the message of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook.
As expected, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that their troops had strictly observed the ceasefire and accused Ukrainian forces of attacking Russian positions and Russian-occupied settlements with artillery and drones. International monitoring groups have confirmed that the Easter ceasefire failed. Experts from the US-based Institute for the Study of War published data from a NASA project showing thermal anomalies detected by satellites along the front line in Ukraine. These hotspots indicate ongoing military activity at a time when there should have been silence on the battlefield.
Russia itself did not observe the ceasefire it had announced, and in some areas used the situation to prepare for potential new assaults. Fighting continued in key directions. The Russian information campaign aimed at blaming Ukraine for breaking the truce failed, including in Western media. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council on Telegram.
In the Czech Republic, Putin's attempt to portray himself as a peacekeeper was dismissed as a media stunt. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipovsky suggested that the so-called Easter ceasefire was a ploy to shape Putin's image in the Western press.
It's like declaring a hunger strike between breakfast and lunch, while secretly eating candy. We see that the attacks continue. Ukraine is reporting a number of assaults, so this so-called ceasefire is more of a publicity stunt than any real attempt at peace.
The Kremlin's proposed one-day ceasefire was also met with skepticism in the EU. European Commission spokesperson for Foreign Affairs Anita Hipper noted that, unlike Russia, Ukraine had agreed over a month ago to an unconditional and full ceasefire.
Russia has a reputation as an aggressor, so we need to see a real end to the aggression and concrete steps toward a lasting ceasefire. Russia could stop this war at any moment, if it truly wanted to. Anita Hipper, lead European spokeswoman for foreign affairs and security, reports Reuters.
The only real difference on Easter Sunday compared to previous days was the absence of air raid sirens. However, a Russian strike still hit a residential apartment block in the village of Kovsharivka in the Kharkiv region. While there were no large-scale overnight barrages of kamikaze drones or long-range missiles, something Ukrainians have sadly grown used to, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy suggested that this partial lull in aerial attacks could serve as a foundation for a more lasting ceasefire in the air.
This is a format of silence that has been achieved and would be easiest to extend. Ukraine proposes a halt to all strikes with long-range drones and missiles on civilian infrastructure for at least 30 days, with the option to extend it further. If Russia refuses, it will be clear proof that it intends to keep destroying lives and prolonging the war. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The Kremlin has not issued a direct response. Moreover, around 3:30 a.m. on April 21st, air raid sirens sounded across many Ukrainian regions. Explosions were reported in Odessa and Cherkasy. In Kherson Oblast, a Russian drone strike injured a man and killed an elderly woman. Reported by Valeria Nekapelova, UATV News.
The number of people injured in yesterday's Russian bomb attack on Zaporizhia has risen to 42. Among them are 7 children. 1 person died. One of the munitions partially destroyed a 9-story residential building. The blast wave damaged neighboring multi-story buildings and the school. About 10 cars burned. Our crew visited the site of the Russian attack.
On April 22nd, around noon, a Russian aerial bomb exploded in a residential district of Zaporizhia. The blast's epicenter was right next to a 9-story apartment building. The explosion damaged the upper floors, ignited parked cars in the courtyard, and shattered windows in surrounding apartments. Police, medics, and emergency workers responded immediately.
Straight ahead, straight ahead.
At the moment of the explosion, Svetlana was in her apartment with her daughters. The blast shattered their windows and balcony doors. Although no one in the family was injured, the children were terrified, she said.
I was more scared for the children. They were crying and screaming so much. I couldn't calm them down for half an hour.
Anna heard the explosion when she was at the market. She rushed home, only to find her building severely damaged.
I wasn't at home. If I had been, I would have been in the kitchen, and there's a big window there. It was completely blown out. The balcony was ripped off with its frame, and the kitchen exhaust vent was torn out too.
The shockwave also shattered windows in nearby apartment buildings. Hundreds of flats were damaged. The explosion was so powerful that not a single window frame remained intact in some homes. Even front doors were torn from their hinges, said Ola.
It was very strong, extremely strong. There's nothing left. No windows, no doors, no balcony, nothing at all. Even the front door is gone.
A school located just 200 meters from the blast site also sustained damage. Around 100 windows were shattered. Classes were in session at the time, but the children were in a shelter, so no one was injured, according to city officials.
Everyone is safe and unharmed. Lessons were underway, and all the children were in the shelter, which is a relief. No one inside was hurt. In fact, the school nurse went out to assist people nearby who had been injured.
Emergency rescue operations have concluded, but municipal services are still working to deal with the aftermath, clearing rubble and boarding up broken windows with wooden panels. Reported by Ola Pritikin, Boris Yakovenko from Zaporizhia Region, UATV News.
Parliamentary elections will be held in Canada on April 28th. In case of victory, the ruling Liberal Party promises to continue aiding Kyiv and increase defense spending. The opposition Conservative Party has declared that it is ready to transfer frozen Russian assets to Kyiv too. Andriy Dmitrenko will tell you more details.
Canada's opposition Conservative Party has pledged to transfer $16 billion worth of frozen Russian assets to Ukraine if it wins the upcoming elections. The party's leader emphasized that the Conservatives have supported Ukraine since the very beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion and intend to increase that support.
As Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre will send these frozen funds to the Ukrainians so they can continue to resist Putin's war machine, and so they have funds to rebuild their country and repair the damage Putin has done, from the statement on the Conservative Party of Canada's website.
Parliamentary elections are scheduled in Canada for April 28. The main contenders, the Liberal and Conservative parties, have both declared their commitment to supporting Ukraine and maintaining pressure on Russia. During a recent debate, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stressed the need to completely cut off the Kremlin's revenues from energy exports to Europe.
Right now, Vladimir Putin has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects. I would rapidly approve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually ship Canadian natural gas over to Europe, break European dependence on Putin, defund the war, and turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
The Liberal Party responded by reminding voters that it was the Conservatives who undermined consensus on Ukraine in the past, voting against training Ukrainian troops in Canada and against a free trade deal with Kyiv. Since Russia's full-scale invasion, the Liberal government has provided Ukraine with over $13.5 billion in assistance and has joined several international initiatives to supply military aid. If re-elected, the Liberals say they will maintain that level of support. Prime Minister Mark Carney assured voters of the government's continued commitment.
Canada has been a steadfast ally, and Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting them in other ways. In my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine as the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas.
Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, Canada has provided Ukraine with $4.5 billion in military aid. This included 777 howitzers, artillery shells, anti-aircraft missiles, and Leopard tanks. In 2024 alone, Ottawa sent a $300 million NASAMS air defense system, 10 LAV 6.0 armored vehicles, and invested nearly $2.2 million in Ukrainian-made drones. According to experts, Canada could do more, but its defense spending currently stands at only 1.4% of GDP. During the presentation of his election program, Mark Carney pledged to raise defense spending to 2% of GDP by 2030 and emphasized the importance of deeper defense cooperation with Europe.
To secure our nation over the long term, we have to do much more. We need to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. So we will boost our Made in Canada defense industry, including by joining Rearm Europe, to invest in transatlantic security with like-minded European partners.
Canadian sovereignty has become a central theme in this election campaign. The concerns go beyond military threats from Russia and China. They also include a trade war with the United States. Washington imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, with additional duties on aluminum, steel, and automobiles. Ottawa responded with countermeasures. Both the Liberal and Conservative parties have promised to continue dialogue with Washington after the elections to achieve a full rollback of the tariffs. Reported by Andriy Dmytrenko, UATV News.
And that's all of the news pulse of today. Remember to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment if you are new to the channel. If you are a veteran, then leave even 2 comments down below. I'll try to reach out to you and answer them on the behalf of the team. Stay safe.